And final of the men's coxed pair, the six-boat lineup. You see on your screens, keen to emulate the legendary Abagnale brothers, who held sway in this event, medalled every year for 10 years in this event before their eventual retirement 2 years ago. The coxed pair's been described as the most difficult way for rowers to get from A to B, but it all makes look excitingly easy by these six highly competent coxed pairs as they go through the first 100 meters out from the start. With me in the commentary box to describe the action, Olympic and world silver medalist John Pritchard.
Well, Robert, going to have another splendid race in prospect here. As you say, the Italians with a very strong track record in this event with the Abagnales, who for many years were dominant, won several gold medals at World and Olympic Championships, and be looking for a very strong performance from them. We've got the conditions here, a slight cross headwind, so it makes it rather slower for the crews. They've got to be that much more flexible in their strategy. Here we see the Cuban pair crossing lane one, furthest away from us. Very good to see Cuba here. Haven't seen them around for a few years, but it's good to see them coming back, along with South Africa, one or two of the other lesser countries. This, of course, no longer an Olympic event, so we're seeing perhaps some of the second degree athletes of these championships, but nonetheless they're very determined to make a mark, and there are gold, silver and bronze medals on offer, and we'll see them all challenging very hard. So the early leaders, as we come through this first section of the race, coming up to 500 meters, it's the French in lane 5, closer to us, just heading the Cubans, as these athletes settle down now for what's going to be a long and very hard race.
French pushing ahead at 500 meters by about half a length. The Begin brothers, Laurent and Antoine, with Christophe Lantagne in the cox's seat. But certainly not to be outdone by the Cubans, also looking strong on the far side. As you were saying, John, only a handful of Cubans competing at World Championships in recent years, generally in the heavyweight men's events. And they had a strong lineup in last year's championships at Indianapolis, but this is a new pairing this year.
They've certainly made a very brave start to this. They're making everyone realise their presence. But the Italians having a very strong push right now. They've raised their rate of striking, kicking hard into this headwind. You see these two very determined Italians, as the Cubans perhaps slightly drop off the pace. And the French very aware of the Italians making a move on the left-hand side. You can see the bowman there glance across. These boats, as you were saying, Robert, are the slowest of the craft, of the disciplines in this World Championships. It takes a great deal of effort with just two men and a cox to carry. But at the moment, France still leading Italy as they move through the second 500 meters, so coming up to halfway in this.
These are the Germans, who remain unchanged from their silver medal at Lucerne. Lars Ekman and Marcus Vogt. The Australians took gold on that occasion, but only Daniel Burke survives out of that crew. He's the Australian stroke this time round. And Shane McLaughlin comes into the bow seat to replace Alistair Gordon.
It's very interesting to note here as the Italians fight very hard to draw level with this French pair. You can see the stroke man of the French cox pair just starting to let his head drop a little bit at the finish as he feels the Italians start to draw level with him, and this is certainly a very determined push by the Italians as they move through the 1,000-meter mark through to the all-important third quarter of this race. So often we see 1,000 to 1,500 meters is the point where you can really make your mark, really break crews, and you're seeing a very determined push here from the Italian pair, driven on by their cox in classic Italian style. And within 20 strokes, they've gone from a couple of feet down to just getting their noses in front of this French pair. Well, just looking across, there's a great shot of the Italian pair. Certainly they're not the most stylish of oarsmen, but nonetheless, they're very powerful, and who's to say they're not very determined indeed. Great shot there of the cox, urging them on. The cox in the bow, the French boat there, also shouting to his men, come on, don't let them go, don't let them go.
Well, a sustained push here by the Italians. As you say, really long and making it look comparatively easy in this boat, I have to say, and it's in marked contrast to the way we used to see the Abignalis row. The Abignalis with that very hunched style over the catch, and these new boys with quite a comparative layback at the finish, straight backed, but certainly making the boat move, and that's what counts. And they move on relentlessly ahead of the French, and the French, it seems, as yet no response.
Certainly are. They're knocking this boat along at something like 38 strokes to the minute, which is a pretty formidable rating in this boat. And I'll tell you one thing, this is going to be a very expensive push, and this is either going to take them out comfortably into the lead, because if someone comes back at them now, it's very difficult to see where they've got to go on top of this. But nonetheless, they're keeping to their task, and they're pushing on very hard. You can really see the speed at which they're kicking those legs down, pushing this heavy boat into this wind as they go through the 1,500 metre mark with just 500 to go in this final of the men's coxed pairs. And at the moment, you have Italy very comfortably in the gold medal position now, about a length clear of the French, who hold on for the silver. And just in that short space of time, we've just seen the Italians open up clear water. It's a remarkable push from these Italians.
Yes, it was the sort of push that you see from pairs, but it came at about 500 metres as they began to move through the field. And then the amazing thing is that they've really held on through the last 1,200 metres now. It's the sort of push that many another crew would have not been able to sustain, but these heavy men really look as though they could row another couple of thousand metres in this same pace.
It's extraordinary. We're often told, and coaches always tell you, when you lift the pace, when you raise the pace in an event, you don't allow it to drop again. Well, that's a great theory. It's very difficult to do. These Italians have done just that. They're through the 1,750 metre mark, 250 to go now in the coxed pairs final here from Tampere, and the Italians some 30 strokes away from the line. And it's very difficult to see what's going to stop them now. The French challenging once again, but they've got a long way to go. The Belgians currently in bronze medal position. They're pushing hard, being pushed themselves by the Australians. Surprised not to see them show a little bit earlier on, I must confess. But here we are, a great shot there of the Italians. The Italian cox urging his men on. Certainly nothing going to stop them now, Robert.
150 metres to go then in the final of the men's coxed pairs, and that sustained push from the Italians has carried them well clear of the French. They lead by a length and a half, the French holding on to the silver medal position, and the Belgians should be untroubled now. There go the Italians across the line to take the gold medal. The cox is ecstatic and out of his seat now, raising his hands in triumph. And so do the Belgians, content it seems with bronze, as Australia crossed the line fourth, Germany fifth, and the Cubans, who showed such early forms through the first 500, could not sustain it and come in sixth.
And there you see the Italian and the Belgian coxes standing up, making their presence felt in the way of these small, understated, introverted men. What about giving us a shot in one of the other boats? So there you are. The result confirmed there, the men's coxed pairs. Italy gold, France silver, Belgium the bronze, with Australia, Germany and Cuba making up the lower places.